it shows intelligent design too, especially with the algebraic bounds of of each structure. The code, the palindromic code that's embedded it's about mirror symmetry. It's about gravity. But ultimately, I mean, it speaks to an organization underlying everything.
Right.
Which is stunning.
Welcome back, University Game here. So this is going to be a very different episode than anything else I've done so far here. This was actually with a bunch of people around, and you'll see that as we start out. And I basically said, Azra, you've got what seems to be a theory and a mathematical code for the nature of reality. And I was like, you just want to do a podcast real quick? So I got 20 minutes to talk to her. And basically, my goal was to ask as many questions as possible about the charts, because she had a bunch of charts and visuals, and I really liked that. So I asked her if I could use those charts here on the podcast. So those will be on half of the screen when we're pointing to specific things. And I'm like, what does this mean on this chart? I should have the visual right next to it. So kind of check that for reference. Okay. So I'm not claiming truth, or I'm not claiming it is correct or it's not correct. I'm literally just going to let you decide, as part of this podcast is about me learning and understanding. So I intend to talk to as many people as possible about the nature of reality. And this is just one of those perceptions. So without further ado, here's Azra.
So this image on the top is showing the geometries that are embedded into our number line.
Okay,
so
and I'll
just
put this
number.
next to the screen, on half the screen, so people can see what we're talking about, because you're not going to be able to see it from this angle here.
Okay, no problem. Those are embedded by palindromic code in quantities of prime numbers and composites. So that manifests if you move the prime gaps, which are all of the numbers between primes, onto a radius. So here, these arches connect prime numbers, and if you move the negative space basically onto a radius, thank you.
You're good. Sorry, I might just do that sometimes, because I know this is completely on the spot.
You might need to.
Yeah.
And you circle those radii.
Sure.
The toric geometry arises organically.
Okay.
Within primes and composite quantities.
Okay, so what would you say the point, if we just take the overarching view of what we're looking at?
It's gravity.
It's gravity. Okay. So we're describing how gravity works from a number perspective.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's embedded into the structure of space-time scalably. So these same geometries can be found within atoms or between galaxies.
Really?
Depending on the magnitude you're looking at. Yes.
Okay, so I'm just looking at, let's just go through some charts here.
Okay.
I'm looking at, and we've got 0 point energy at ground state, cross-hopping conical intersections at 101. Can you just explain that title to me?
Yeah, so I received that title. So when I was a kid, I had this information. I forgot it because I had a lot of trauma. Had a near-death experience in 2013 and began retracing what I remembered hearing as a kid in math class. And I heard audibly, look at the numbers of the left and right of 12. And so as an adult, when I began retracing it, it led to all of this. So I was being given information that I had no knowledge of at the time as being significant, but it turns out it was something super fundamental to the structure of space-time itself. And this, 0 point energy at ground state, that was provided to me. And this was also provided to me in a dream. Basically, if you can imagine this, so this is a clock layout. It's a mod 12 visual.
Yeah. Okay.
If you can imagine it as two cones with the intersection at 0, it shows that if you wrapped linear space-time around a clock this way, prime numbers organize on spokes 1, 5, 7, and 11.
Okay.
So it shows further organization behind something we currently consider to be mostly random. On top of that, each piece of geometry is also bound by algebra. So it's like essentially.
I just want to click here. While you're talking, wherever. Just in case the mics get that, I'm like, we might as well use the backup. If we have a backup, perfect.
Copy that.
Yeah. Okay.
Just one
up a little bit, because that's the mic. Perfect. Okay, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Do I put this down?
No, you're good. Okay. You can still. It's just in case.
Okay.
Anything happens.
Cool.
Okay. So let's just go back to the concept of 0 point energy, because I think a lot of people don't even know what 0 point means.
I think That's for a good reason, because there's a lot of different perspectives.
Right. So what's it to you is essentially what I'm...
To me, it's essentially extracting energy from the void of space.
Okay.
Which isn't really a void. I mean, there's a lot of mechanics happening within that, but numerically, it would be zero and below as well for there to be a sink. But
yeah,
it shows that, I mean, lots of different aspects of physics come into play, like special and general relativity, 0-point energy. But essentially, what I think we're looking at, what physics, something to compare it to current physics, would be considered and comparable to like the Higgs field. So the field that's said to give matter.
Higgs boson?
Yeah, okay. That definitely. But to give
mass, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Matter.
Exactly. Yes. I don't know how the right way to say that. Sounds weird, doesn't it? But yeah,
it does.
The field said to give matter mass.
Or matter mass, yeah.
So
interesting.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay.
And even, I mean, it shows intelligent design too, especially with the algebraic bounds of the, of each structure. The code, the palindromic code that's embedded, it's about mirror symmetry, it's about gravity, but ultimately, I mean, it speaks to an organization underlying everything.
Right.
Which is stunning.
And it seems to show up continually.
Yes, absolutely. And so this is only drawn up to 900, but I numerically went up to 2000. And if you go up that high, 75% of the geometries that occur here repeat at least once. So not only are they in one space, they're in another. Of course, it's a higher number range, but same geometry, which is fascinating.
So when you look at all this stuff that you've brought in, if you had to say, what do you think the most fascinating part of it is? If it's a sentence or if it's a paragraph, or it could be really anything. I'm just curious off the top of your head. All right, I just quickly wanted to let you know that this podcast is sponsored by my book, 10 Secrets of Awakening. The book is about understanding consciousness, how to transform your life, and self-realization. If you're interested in these topics, check out the book. It's available on Amazon as ebook or paperback. I mean, there's a lot of implications for it. I think free energy development, it could have a number of applications there. But ultimately, I mean, it shows to an intelligent design. And it connects all of us. So it would be hard to show a video, but I have a video of... I can throw that up too.
Okay,
if you send it to me later.
Well, I can show it to you now. It's a super quick visual.
I can play it on the...
Awesome.
On the background. I think we're still in the shot. I'm right on the edge of glory. Okay. That's better. It's a better angle. That's right. Feel free to, if you want to sing. I know.
No, but please go ahead. Any impressions?
I like how I noticed that there's fractal patterns that repeat. I saw the Vesica Pisces in one point, and then another point. It's that's shows kind of an intelligent design that it is not just random. It's just there's a structure and a geometry behind everything that we see around us.
You're talking about the top one with the circles.
Yeah, the circles. There's you said they repeat 75% or how much?
Yeah. By the time you hit 2000, 75% of the geometries preceding that occur at least twice.
Wow.
Interesting.
Very. And so I guess another most interesting part of it would be that it's gravity, but it's the unified field. So even though it's an infinite number line, if you change your perspective and view it looking through it, into it like a straw instead of linearly along it.
It's 3D. We're looking at 3D.
Yes. It unifies into concentric circles.
So when you say the unified field, how would you describe that the concept of a unified field?
I would say that it will help. Thank you. It will.
You're good.
It will help illuminate. Right now, there's basically the thing impeding the unification of physics is quantum gravity. And since this is scalable on all orders of magnitude, this could very well be the key that we've been looking for to bridge that gap completely.
So unifying Einstein's theories with quantum mechanics, that's the biggest...
All the forces of nature, the weak, strong electromagnetic and gravitic forces in one image, in one numerically coherent image, nonetheless.
So it's the unified theory, or that Stephen Hawking wanted.
The theory of everything?
Yeah, the theory of everything, that one, yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
I think it's very possible.
So what do you think's missing when you look at the current work versus this work? What do you think the difference is? Like the current physics model versus
I don't know enough to answer that question. I just know that
Sure.
the gap is quantum gravity.
Okay.
But I never completed my degree because I couldn't pass math at the time.
Okay.
And now I'm doing this kind of work.
Hey,
so
things change.
clearly.
I was back on the Robert Graham podcast. I remember I said I failed math in high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
and now
thank
I'm
you.
in,
I don't
now
feel
I'm in
as
a math
alone.
group.
Great.
I'm just saying.
That's perfect. That's
so
perfect.
Things can change just because you don't get it early on.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when now you're bringing up words that are like spicy words, just in my mind to kind of stick out. Like we talked about 0 point. We talked about some of the other ones. What about quantum gravity? So quantum gravity in itself, if you could put that in a sentence.
Well,
We kind of talked about it a little bit, but
I feel like
I'm just trying to make sure if like someone has no idea.
about quantum gravity.
Yeah.
I mean, that wouldn't be really my wheelhouse, but I think that this is a really good template to use to understand that because it's scalable. So as far as pulling it into just regular gravity, the center points of each one of those radii are comparable to suns.
The center point, you mean like the yellow? Is that what you're talking about?
Like on the radius, the center point that's there is comparable to a sun.
Okay.
Or to each piece. So like 30 would be a sun.
Sure.
And it's symmetric, it's the symmetric center of that group of code, basically.
Got it.
So just like we were talking about in Walter Russell's work, how there's like a negative and a positive side to that. Each, like if you looked at this, as a negative side and a positive side, that center point would be where the sun would be. So on a quantum level, I don't know what that equates to. Like what could on a quantum level would, be comparable to a sun? I'm not sure, but clearly there's something that is because those patterns, it's scalable. So it doesn't matter if we're measuring in like nanometers or parsecs, or light years, those patterns are there.
Interesting.
So there's something on the quantum.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say like the quantum gravity thing. Isn't that we're trying to unify our theories of quantum mechanics of like the most fundamental thing in the universe, which is like the quantum energy and particles like that, the most fundamental particles like quarks and leptons and all those, and unify the theories that we have of that in quantum mechanics with the like Schrodinger equation of how like particles exist in many states at once. And to unify that with Einstein's theories of like general relativity and special relativity about the actual structure of space-time itself at a very large level.
Yeah.
And unifying the big with the small is like the
Is it
quantum.
possible?
I mean, I don't know anything about like math and that, but like I just know like that's what science is like trying to do right now. Like unifying the theories of the big with the small.
High tier science.
And I think this is like a mathematical structure, for a geometric and mathematical structure of showing something about space-time that could connect with that. Like that's another part of the puzzle piece.
100%. It's a big piece and we've been missing. And then an interesting point too is like, despite all those particles and quarks and leptons and all that, at the end of the day, the whole string theory comes into it and it makes us question, okay, so we're looking at particles, but are they even real? And so there's a holographic aspect to this as well, that also the double slit experiment, of course, comes in, and
with the
Moiré patterns and all, constructive, destructive interference, all of that.
I'm just going to start doing this.
Okay. So that
it'll be
image,
easier for you.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
I can move it.
I know, that's okay. I just want to make sure that we get what you're saying.
Yeah, totally.
Should I move it like this?
I was wondering before we started, should I do this back and forth style or should I give you, So I was just curious.
Oh yeah, there's the
Are you
four
ready?
forces.
10 minutes? Okay, we got 10 minutes.
Okay.
There's the four forces of nature.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it unifies all of those. Those are all represented here. But the image on the far right, can you see how in the orange part of that, it almost looks like it's projecting off the page?
Yeah.
So there's a holographic quality. Yeah.
I just like with the interference patterns, it's like those are the interference patterns of the structure of space-time itself. Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right.
It's pretty crazy that it has an actual like geometry that's fractal, I guess, in nature at 75% or whatever. At least it repeats.
Yes. It's incredible. Yeah. It is incredible. I know. I couldn't believe it when I started actually realizing what this was, because I was like, who am I to have this?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's very, it's been given to me since I was a kid, and it's very basic.
Oh, so like some circles represent the strong force, and then the big circles like that represent gravity, or like what is this diagram over here?
Yes, you're exactly right.
Oh, okay. Wow. So it's like all the forces in one. Wow, that's so trippy.
Yeah, so it's the and it's all about the perspective, literally, the angle you're looking at. Like, are you looking at the front of it, the top of it, the end of it?
Yeah.
And so all of those occur based on, they're occurring simultaneously based on the actual angle you're viewing it from, if it's actually a structure. But I mean, I created it in 3D so you can swing it around and look into it and across it. So
Yeah.
That is pretty insane.
Yeah, I mean, this is just all fascinating, and I like the visuals that you have here because it really helps. I'm one that does really well when I see things as well as just somebody saying it to me. Sometimes it's hard for me to visualize it, and bring it in. But you've got like fractalization, implied geometry down here. Woo! Just keeps going. I see this. Seed of life, right? Seed of life, or I think that's. And then you've got. Man, my editor's gonna have a lot of fun. Throw all these images in. You're getting overtime on this one.
Oh wow, wow.
But
yeah, and then that one.
Palindromic code in the millions.
Yep.
But what is palindromic? That's what I was like when you were saying that. I was a bit confused. Like, cause like I said, I don't know anything like about mathematics, but I can see like there's a structure and pattern here. Yeah.
So palindrome is like the word mom. So it's the same forward or backward, or like race car or level. So all of those words have the same letters from a center point to the left and a center point to the right. So that the same concept is employed by this code that is in our number line. So the center point to the left of it has the same quantity of composites or semi-primes in these gaps between the primes and the prime gaps. So there's 5 composites, a prime, 3 composites, 1 prime, 1 composite, 1 prime. So it's mirrored. So a palindrome is essentially from the center point a mirrored expression.
Yeah, so it's mirrored in mathematics with that. Yeah.
Exactly. And so into the millions, it shows. See how the image right below those numbers is really complex? Yes. So versus this one. So into the millions, the prime gaps, the numbers between the primes, get larger. So I think that actually might relate to the increasing universal acceleration as it expands, yes. And increases, though, because those numbers increase so drastically the higher you get up there in the number line. So it would expand and increase.
So it shows as it grows, because isn't it getting faster?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Why is it getting faster?
And I think that has to do with it.
Because if this is the structure of space-time, it's like following the numbers. Like when the gaps get bigger, it's actually the space is getting bigger.
That's right. Exactly. Yes.
Well, I think that's all the time we get today. Thanks for coming on and just kind of explaining. If I don't get a chance to talk to you again, we might get it. I'm sure we might, but if we don't, what do you think is one thing you want to leave people with about the nature of reality or anything, or this, or whatever's calling you?
I'd like to leave my website if I could.
Sure. Well, yeah, for sure that. But I mean, like, just about this stuff.
That it unifies all of us.
Unifies all of us.
Yeah, and
that's beautiful.
Not only to each other, but like to literally, absolutely everything that exists.
Yeah.
And it's sacred because it is embedded within the structure of creation. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, those.
Hope we got that mic. It's Mike's down there again. Ah! It happens. But, yeah, you're cosmicporch.com, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And my name's Azra Wind. And I mean, it has to do also with the ascension of humanity and where we go in the new earth. So
beautiful.
Big things.
Check her out. Stuff will be in the description, wherever you're at, and show notes, whatever it is. Thanks for coming in here as well, but I appreciate you. Got a little something in here.
Nick.
Hopefully it wasn't too complex for people. I think you did a great job explaining it. But
good.
I'm going to take a picture of it and try and just like...
I wish I had a cleaner presentation, but thank you.
I know. I like it. I like that
it's very impromptu.
I like that it's like that because people sometimes lock up
That's
when
true.
it's super formal.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Instead, we're just here chilling. I kind of feel like this is... I love just kind of getting in here versus like... I like them both, but I think there's something valuable in like, hey, we're just chilling anyways.
That's true.
Versus we have to sit down and do this because I think there's not a lot of people doing this.
Absolutely
you know what
right.
I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
So.
Definitely. Thank you for the opportunity.
Cool. Yes. All right. Subscribe. very interesting episode of Universe of Game. And let me know what you think down in the comments. If you've got mathematical expertise or you just want to share your opinion, I'd love to hear it because I wasn't really sure after I did this. And I'm like still taking it in. So I'm curious as to what you think about it. And if you enjoyed this episode, feel free to consider hitting subscribe here on YouTube to get more episodes just like this. And if you like this episode, on the bottom left of your screen right now, there will be a place for you to tap the Robert Grant podcast, because this is a very math heavy podcast. And another math heavy one that I have is the Robert Grant re-release that I just put out. So go ahead and tap that. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next episode of Universe of Game. And until then, peace.